they were afraid. And they were afraid. Now watch this. Long as the man was acting a fool, long as he was cutting himself, long as he was all kind of noise, long as he was acting crazy, long as he was calling women bees and hoes, long as he was doing that which was self-destructive, the people were okay with that. But the moment he's seated at the feet of Jesus, dressed right, he ain't singing no more. In his right mind, the text says they got scared. There is nothing, brothers, this nation fears more than a black man who is clothed in his right mind and hooked up with Jesus. Imagine this brother say, well, what had happened was, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Come on, you flat son. And whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but will have everlasting life. I can hear this brother saying, what had happened was, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away, and behold, all things become new. I can hear him saying what had happened was, for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. What had happened was, cast your cares upon the Lord, for he cares for you. What had happened was, can't nobody do me like Jesus. Lean on somebody and say, can't nobody do me like the Lord. Bless his name. I need you to know that God is able to deliver you. God is able to lift you up. God is able to bring you out. God is able to make a way out of no way. And so in our text, in the book of Genesis, the Lord calls down from glory because Adam and Eve were hiding because they had disobeyed the Lord. And the Lord says, Adam, where are you? Bless his name. He says, I was hiding. Why were you hiding? Because I was naked. Told you were naked. Bless his name. And there's been too many brothers that have been hiding on the corner. Thank you, Jesus. You got a responsibility to go back to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Bless the name of the Lord. But you got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. That's the name of the Lord. Somebody got to tell themselves it's all right if you got it now. Just hold it for me. I'll be there to get it after a while. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. You make up in your mind. God has for me. It is for me. I might not have it right now. I may not get it next week. You might try to stop me from getting it. But if God said it's mine, I want you to know after a while, I'm going to get what belongs to me. .7 WTCC. Good morning and welcome to the Spoken Word. I'm bopping to my own intro music. Welcome to the Spoken Word, and as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African-American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness and create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. 3 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. Welcome to another edition of the Spoken Word. Thank you so much to Mr. Kenneth Barnett for bringing us up into the 9 o'clock hour. Thank you to our remote director, Jim Malachias, for getting us live over the air with you over our 4,000 watts, reaching all points throughout the Pioneer Valley, Vermont, Connecticut, wherever. And thank goodness for the World Wide Web and all of you who are tuned in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope. Am I missing somebody? YouTube. Yes, my YouTube listeners, do me a favor. Like, subscribe, and share. Let somebody know the bishop is on the air right now. All right? I want to deal with some things this morning. Good morning to each of you who are chiming in. I see every single one of you. Dr. Adebisi, good morning to you. Keyshawn Dodds, good morning to you. The Reverend Pastor Jesse Burgess, good morning. I'll be with him, incidentally, on Wednesday evening in his annual conference. I'll be streaming live from the Spring of Hope Church
preaching in that conference. So you want to tune in and check that out on this coming Wednesday, and check out the entire conference this week. Do me a favor, rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Always love to know where our listeners are chiming in from. And do me a favor, share this on your time. Let somebody know. We got some stuff to talk about, family. Listen, this disaster that happened in Texas, and I know that many are looking at it as a Republican, Democrat thing, all that stuff. I see you, Atlanta, Georgia. I see you chiming in there on YouTube. ATL in the house. I see Dubai in the house. I see you. Listen, this thing that happened in Texas, I promise you, this is a case study in white supremacy. Years and years of what happens when you allow white supremacy to run rampant. And we're going to deal with that. And I'm going to make my case and try to prove my point. And of course, we'll open up the phone lines, 413-337-1867. So definitely get ready if you want to chime in on the discussion. All right. So check it out. I'm going to play a little bit of poetry. I'm going to play a piece by my late sister, one of my favorites. I Like What I See. On the other side of the break, we're going to come back and we're going to deal with this issue and some other issues. It is said now that a police officer made a deathbed confession that affirms that the United States government was complicit in the murder of Malcolm X, something that we've always suspected for many, 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 many years. But now someone in law enforcement is saying it is so. Don't you dare touch that dial. Don't go nowhere. Don't be surfing all over the place and all that stuff. Just stay locked right here. Coming up at 9:45, Beauty and the Beast. That's what my wife calls it. First Lady will be joining me at 9:45. So don't touch the dial. We'll be right back.
I look in the mirror and I like what I see. A strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain and had her share of sorrow, but who never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, stolen from, and hit, but it just made me stronger, and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. Don't go down. I rose above that nonsense and made a liar of the devil. All right now. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I do all things through Christ, which strengthens me, and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love for me he came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. That strong black woman, that woman is...
90.7 WTCC. Welcomes to the spoken word. I got multiple ATLs in the house. I got Muncie, Indiana in the house. I got Alexandria, Virginia in the house. I got Cross Anchor, South Kakalaki, South Carolina in the house. I got my baby girl, my oldest daughter, Whitney, from Chi-Town in the house. I got San Antonio, Texas in the house. Good morning, Aunt Marion. I see you. I see you. I see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're coming in from. I see you, Michael Moore. Good morning to you. Good morning, everybody. Somebody said the white supremacists are going to get upset. That's okay. That's okay. Happy Monday to you. I'm used to that. They always get upset with me. So I got Birmingham, Alabama up in the house. I got Dallas, Texas. We going down your road. We going down your road. Dallas, Texas. I got Dallas in the house. Another Birmingham. Roll Tide up in here, up in the house. 413. Let me get that up. Let me get that up. Well, first I need to activate the phone line. I'm about to put up the phone number, and I haven't even activated the phone line yet. So let me activate the phone line, so we can be able to take some telephone calls. I had some interesting ones last week. Y'all remember Billy from last week? Hey, Billy, I know you're listening. I know you're listening, Billy, because you listen every week. You've been listening to me for years. You've been listening to me for 10, 15 years. I don't know why you stress yourself out so much. But Billy was big mad last week. Let's see if he's going to be upset this week. I don't know. And let me get the number up here. 413-337 1867 is the number up in here. I got another one from the Chi. Yes, cousin Lisa. We know you rep the Chi. I got London, the UK is up in the house. All right. I got Jerry all the way from Pensacola, Florida, up in here. Florida's in here, y'all. Massachusetts is in here. New York is in here. Alabama is in here. South Carolina is up in here. Virginia is up in here. Dubai is up in here. Illinois is up in here. They all up in here today. 413-337-1867. Listen, let me tell you, this Texas disaster is a case study. It's a case study, okay, in white supremacy. I promise you, it really is. I see you, Annie Beard. Good morning. In order to make sense of the natural disaster, the infrastructure nightmare that was preventable. This is not something that wasn't preventable. In order to understand the human-induced disaster that has struck Texas with multiple losing their lives, freezing to death, losing power, you first need an accurate picture of who lives in Texas. So let's just keep it a buck, right? First, you need to know who lives there. Texas has its oil barons, it has its fossil fuel lobbyists, it definitely has opportunistic political so-called leaders who have basically extracted wealth from the state at the expense of the environment and also at the expense of basic human needs. And let me tell you something. As long as y'all keep electing politicians that value profits over people, you're going to get situations like the disaster that happened in Texas, because they extract wealth at the expense of the environment and at the expense of the lives of people. But the real figure that should stand out is 17 million. Those 17 million people in Texas. I'm talking about the black people, the Latinx people, the indigenous people, Asian population of Texas. That encompasses about 60% of the state. 60% of the state is non-white. Okay. Only 3 states in the entire nation, only 69 counties, have a larger total population than Texas. But they don't have the percentage of non-white folks. When you think about the population of Texas, there are entire nations, Denmark, Finland, Norway, combined, that don't total 17 million residents. Of the 13 cities in the U.S. with populations above 900,000 today, 5 are in Texas. All right, you got Houston, you got San Antonio, you got Dallas, you got Austin, you got Fort Worth. And they all have large Black, Latinx, Asian, and indigenous populations. So let's just think about that for a moment, because when it comes to allowing a population to suffer, when it comes to having a power grid that is substandard, that they were warned about years ago, where this disaster could have easily been prevented. You understand why this was allowed to happen. You understand why politicians and those elected leaders in Texas allowed the free market to run amok. Because the lobbyists put money into their campaign coffers, got all kinds of perks, and they was doing illegal stuff. You know it. You know they were paying for their kids to go to college. They were giving them all kinds of money, hand over foot. I see you, cousin Sheila. And that's why it's no big deal if we allow Black people and Latinx people and indigenous people to suffer, and we make money off it. So what? American way. And, outrage erupted in Texas and throughout the nation because of it. But they should have been being held accountable long before now. Long before now. And herein lies the problem with non-white populations that make up the majority of any particular city, town, or state. And that even goes for the city that I live in right now, in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is considered and I hate the term minority, because minority has, but it is considered a majority minority city, where the majority of the people are non-white. But our problem is, we allow the white community to keep us so divided and fractioned off within our own communities. Black folk can't come together with Black folk. Latino folk can't come together with other Latino folk. Latinos can't come together with Black folk. Black folk can't come together with Asian folk. And there's a whole lot of these populations, a whole lot in the Latinx community, a whole lot in the Asian community, a whole lot even within our own Black community subcategories. When you consider those of Caribbean descent, when you consider Jamaicans and Trinidadians and Africans, all have a level of anti-Blackness to them as well. And so we can't come together. So as long as they can keep us divided, they can keep manipulating us. They can keep taking advantage of us. Because there's no way in the world that in a state where 60% of the population is non-white, that they should keep electing white supremacist governors, white supremacist mayors, white supremacist elected officials all across the state of Texas. It makes no sense whatsoever. But they keep us divided, and then they keep us politically divided because they convince you all that you should vote for them on some basis that has nothing to do with your quality of life. So those that are very religious, Latino, Black people, they say you got to vote based on abortion and homosexuality, and the hell with our policies that are going to decimate your community. The hell with our policies that allow the free market to run amok, to have a substandard grid, to allow the fossil fuel barons and the oil tycoons to make money hand over fist while you all suffer in low-wage jobs. You're voting for these clowns because they gave lip service to their stance on homosexuality. And gay folk ain't got nothing to do with that grid malfunctioning in Texas. But y'all voted for them for that reason. You said the hell with their policies. The heck with their politics. The heck with the fact that their policies favor the rich, favor the conservatives, favor white folk who don't give a hamburger about you. You said they're on the Lord's side with abortion and homosexuality, and you voted for them. And now look at you. Look at you now. Freezing to death. Oh, boy. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Good morning, caller.
I'm here.
You're on the air.
Okay, just checking in on most of what you're talking about here. And this situation that's right here now has been around forever. And a lot of people right now, a lot of our people, they feel as though they're not out in a cotton field or a cornfield. The ones that got a little bit more than others, they think they're doing okay. And when they go out and vote, they're voting for people that mean them no wellness at all. And right now, we go back to Texas, and I was just listening at the vision that you put out there. It's definitely like that, and there's big populations of people out there. But then, really, the control is over these, mongrels that all they're thinking about is having funds and money to control, and that goes right back to the 1500s, 1600s, right on up through to where they got control over you. And you're thinking all the time that these guys mean you well, but they don't mean you well. So hopefully a lot of people talk about President Biden. They dumped everything in his lap to get done. Well, what's the matter with these guys that's been there forever that haven't did anything, and now they want to, jump on each side of Biden and have him do everything in 4 years? It's not going to happen. So
right.
That voting block that we have, we got to start thinking about ourselves other than what people think about us, and then we got to go for it. I just wanted to add that in there, and I enjoy your show, so you have yourself a good day.
All right. Thank you for your call. 413-337-1867. Someone said that they have a major problem with redlining in Texas. Absolutely right. It's all about money. They care nothing for the people. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Hi, Carmen. Hi, Carmen. Y'all, excuse me. I got to take a grandfather break. Hi, Carmen. Papa loves you. I have a grandbaby is saying hi to me from Chicago. Most of the brown folks are white supremacy, someone says. Yeah, Texas has a number of brown folk who vote for the white supremacists that have allowed things like this power grid failure to happen. They keep electing clowns like Ted Cruz. And while babies like Christian Pavone, an 11-year-old who died in his bed of hypothermia, while he was dying, Ted was taking his kids to Cancun. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, Bishop Swan. How are you today?
I'm great.
Bishop Swan.
I'm wonderful.
Yes, the reason why I was just calling in was because there is something that I wanted to bring up, especially like a systemic barrier when it comes to black families. And as I was doing research, I just noticed that black homes on average are more likely to be undervalued than white homes.
Yeah, and you know why? That has completely to do with bigotry. There was you'll be able to search it and find it online. There was a family, a man and his wife, who purchased a home at about
white man, black woman, right?
No. These were two. These were a black man and a black woman. They purchased a home at about $900,000. They put about $400,000 worth of work into the home, and then had it appraised. They came and appraised the home under the value that they bought it for. They appraised the home at about $800,000. They said there's no way in the world this house should appraise that low. So they protested, called the appraiser. The appraiser agreed to send someone out to do a second appraisal. When they came out to do the second appraisal, they got a friend of theirs to come to their home to put pictures of her and her family around to pretend the house was hers. The friend was white. And when the second appraiser came to appraise the home, they appraised the home at about $1.6 million, literally $600,000 above what the last appraiser appraised the home to be, strictly because they thought they were appraising it for a white person instead of a black person.
And the thing was is that I also came across a report that talked about how, black homes are like 23% undervalued on average. And it was just that the neighborhood qualities, according to the report, because it looked at certain variables like when the homes were built, the quality of the homes, like, the quality of the neighborhoods, like, amenities and all that kind of stuff. And it was explaining that these variables couldn't completely explain why black homes are undervalued on average, right? Then, of course, you have practices like redlining, which automatically, white homes are more valued than, black homes. I mean, so that's also a racist effect of redlining, but also, I guess when, we have practices that are built with racism, and then, when people become, part of these industries, it's like this implicit bias continues to spread as generations passes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not only implicit bias, but explicit racism.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like when you have all these, like, you can only do so much to try to close like the racial wealth gap, but then it's like when you have all these systemic barriers in your way, how can you? And the racial wealth gap between white and black people in America is getting even worse.
Absolutely.
It's getting even worse. And it's just, when I listen to Thomas Sowell and stuff like that, how can you ignore these systemic issues that are impacting, like, black people are still way more likely to be unemployed regardless if they have a college degree, a high school diploma, or if they're a dropout.
And a black man with a college degree on average in his lifetime is going to make less money than a white man with a high school diploma.
Yeah, so it's like, I agree, black people need to make the right decisions and put the guns down, but it's like, how can someone like Thomas Sowell deny such complete barriers that are right in front of your face? Proven by academia dozens of times.
Absolutely.
I don't understand.
Yes, sir. Appreciate your call. So many poignant points.
Peace out.
413-337-1867. one of our folks who were watching said that there's a huge problem in Texas with redlining, and that whole process of devaluing homes and all of that, and that is a reality not just in black neighborhoods. The story I gave of the black couple, they bought a home in a predominantly white neighborhood, and their house was still devalued because they were black. It wasn't because there was crime in the neighborhood. It wasn't because of the value of the other homes around them or anything. It was explicit racism. They devalued their home because they were black. There is a history that exists here. And this is what you all have to understand. This thing in Texas is not, it didn't happen in a vacuum. It's not a modern phenomenon. It's a consistent, perpetual type of attitude in that state and in states across the nation where black people live, where non-white folks live. I mean, you got to go back. If you go back to the revolts of the 1960s, basically global powers responded with a neoliberal restructuring that was designed to heighten the free reign of capital and weaken the collective power of workers and unions. This is what happened across the nation. This whole notion of allowing free markets, they talk a good game because it sounds good. Because you all get caught up and inundated with the whole notion of American capitalism and the concept of being able to get rich and all of that stuff. And you say there's nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing wrong with getting rich, is it? There is something wrong when you getting rich is at the expense of the lives and the well-being of other people. Now, there's nothing wrong with wealth unless wealth is obtained at the expense of other human beings. That's what we've got to understand. And that's why Texas is a case study. Because when the wealth of the billionaires in Texas is based off of raping the environment, which produces environmental racism that allows people in black communities to live, around plants and around institutions that pump pollution and smog into their communities, and where they have things under the ground that pollute the soil, and where the rates of asthma are much higher, and where people are susceptible to diseases and cancers and other type of ailments that cause them to have a reduced life expectancy. That's a problem. That's a problem. When capitalism is at the expense of people based on their skin color, that's a problem. So you all have to understand American capitalism before you just go off wholesale and endorse it as it is. Good morning. You're on the air.
How's it going?
It's going.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. All right. So my question is this, and this is a simple question, but it's a big question. What are we going to do about it? We can sit up here. It's okay to talk about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Your platform is great. Tariq Nasheed, everybody just, on this wave of, black people excelling. But the thing is, we can talk about it. That's fine. but we have to come up with a strategy. We have to come up with a game plan, and we got to make this game plan is effective. Then we got to take action with that game plan. We know what tactics they use.
But we all don't know. But we all don't know. But we all don't know. Some of us know. Some of us know, which is the reason why we need to use platforms to educate people so that they recognize the game when it's being played.
Yes, there we go. There we go. And I think part of the game that they use, because right now I'm in Brighton, Massachusetts, and I notice it's a predominantly Jewish, quote unquote, community. Now, I walk through the neighborhoods of the Jewish people. Their houses are very nice, upper middle class. They have a certain section to where in their culture of controlling Hollywood and propaganda. They're big on that. They control the media, the majority of the media, the stuff that's in the record companies, the stuff that's put in front of us. It's like a carrot dangling on a stick. It's poison. This is another thing that we're up against. The media, the propaganda, the detriment of our culture. It's detrimental. They promote it, they push it in front of us, and they expect for our children to watch this stuff and our children absorb it. This is why many, many years ago, I'd say about close to 8 years ago, I turned off the television. I stopped watching television. And it took me a while to start, channeling into like the real energy and started seeing the real truth. Because that stuff that they put in front of us, that's a weapon. It's a psychological weapon. It's social. It's programming. This is another.
But it's also here's what I think is critical in terms of the game they play. It's kind of like, you know how you play the game with your kids when they were young, and you pointed off somewhere and said, "Look over there," and the kid looked, and then you did whatever you did while they were looking over there. That's the game they continue to play, the distraction game. So they distract us with other things while they're doing dastardly things right in front of our face that we are not paying attention to. And by the time we notice it, like when the grid goes in Texas, by the time stuff like that happens, it's too late for us to do anything about it. That's the game they continue to play, and we keep falling for it every time.
Every time. And I was just dawning on a thing about I was watching the Tyreek Nasheed special, and he just put out the show, his podcast, and he was saying that how blacks don't control, the record company. He was talking about Prince and how Prince, didn't participate in anything in any of his vocals without him getting paid. Smart move. But we got to remember, back in the 1970s, when Prince first came out, he was just an artist. He was a brilliant, genius artist.
Right.
But he didn't own the manufacturing plants to press up his records. He did not own the distributing facilities, how to get his music distributed. See, this is the mindset and the level. They own. What happens is they wind up owning you.
The reason why when Prince changed his name and went to that little symbol and began to say the artist formerly known as Prince, It was because the record companies that had contracts with him would not allow him to use the name Prince. They literally owned his name, and he couldn't put out an album under the name Prince until he finally, you know, through legal means was able to retain his name back.
But the point I'm making, and this is a very valid point, and you got to have an eagle's eye to see this point that I'm going to make. Remember, Prince was just an artist, a very talented artist when he first broke through, but he wasn't at the level to get his music out only because he was at the level of being an artist. So the record companies were different people thinking differently. They said, okay, what I'm going to get into the industry of manufacturing rather than being the artist. Or if I am an artist, I also want to know and study and practice the mechanics of mass production.
And once he did that, watch this. Prince began to sign on artists like a Shaka Khan and others who did not put out platinum albums, but made more money than people who did put out platinum albums, because you had people putting out millions of albums, but were getting 10 cents and 20 cents a unit, whereas they were getting $5 and $6 a unit. So they could sell 100,000 records and make more money than someone who sold 1 million records.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, my question was, did Prince at that time when he signed Shaka Khan, did he have a manufacturing plant? I'm
not sure if he did at that time.
See, that's the thing. That's the point I'm making, where the eagle can see certain things where other creatures can't. These people that were into manufacturing, they saw something different rather than just being the artist. The artist did not have the means and the way to get their music out there. They didn't have a manufacturing pressing plant to press vinyl. These other innovative people that were thinking on a higher level thought and said, okay, I'm going to build a manufacturing plant that can mass produce vinyl. That takes a certain type of way of thinking. See, now what we have to do is we have to start, the answer to that is we have to start reprogramming our minds to start thinking, okay, what are we up against? What is enemy? We have to be on the cutting edge of biology, technology. This is what other people are doing. They're trying to colonize Mars. There are 10 steps. There are people that think at intellectual levels that are 10 steps ahead. While we still down here on lower levels talking about this, and that. We have to raise our consciousness.
Yeah, and once again,
we have to teach our boys, our sons, our black sons to manufacture biology, technology, high levels of mathematics.
And we've got to understand that these things are being done once again at the expense of other people. I got to take some more phone calls. Thanks so much for your call. 413-337-1867. Good points made by the caller. At 9:45 in just a few minutes, we're going to bring the First Lady on to the program. Listen. While Texas was suffering, Ted Cruz took a let them eat cake vacation to Cancun. That was just a visible reminder of the cruelty of our political system. A system that rewards politicians propped up by corporate money, by right-wing lies, and by racist ideologies for evading responsibility to their community. And then they have the nerve to talk about others as the elites. Elitism is when your state is suffering. When 11-year-old boys like Christian Pavone are dying in their own bedrooms of hypothermia, and you're on your way to Cancun, ignoring what's happening in your state because people like you valued profits over people. 413-337-1867. What's happening?
Nothing much. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. You woke up?
Yeah, I know I sound a little dry, but it's not from sleeping late. It's from, giving all that I had, this weekend in my return to the church.
And you slept late too.
I didn't sleep late.
You were asleep when I got back from Starbucks.
You always trying to throw somebody under the bus.
I'm just saying you were asleep when I got back from Starbucks. That's all I'm saying.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How y'all doing?
So Texas
I was listening to the conversation.
Texas is your home state.
Yes, it is.
And so there's some of your peeps down there.
No, all of my peeps are down there except for my immediate family.
Yeah, your peeps are down there.
Yeah. Good morning.
And now one of the things that I was saying was based on the statistics. 60% of the residents of Texas, 60% out of 17 million people are Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and Asian, non-white folks. And it's amazing to me
that is a red state.
In a state where 60% of the people are white, they continue to elect statewide politicians that are white supremacists or that ascribe to white supremacist ideology. Even when their last name is Cruz, they continue to put these people back in office over and over and over again. What's up with that?
Well, I'm not an expert, although I'm from Texas.
You got an opinion.
I do have an opinion. I can say this, that, I came here really young. I was 21 years old when I moved here to Massachusetts. But I didn't really begin to get extremely or more educated about what was going on, politically, what was going on as far as like the socioeconomic landscape of my home state until I actually moved away and, and could look back. And I'm sure that, my family that never moved away, some of these things they still can't see because they're engrossed in it, if you will. It's always been this way. And so they might only know their neighborhood, but, from a social perspective more than a political perspective. Although, I think things have changed and people are certainly waking up. And I consider myself to still be waking up. I'm not woke yet. I know a lot of people say
you ain't woke.
I'm woke.
You're woke. You're woke-ish.
I'm woke-ish, right? I'm still waking up because every day, and I'm 53 years old, but every day I'm learning something new.
Don't be throwing ages out there because then people gonna think I'm old.
Well, you are. You're older than me. So, but anyway,
y'all. Sorry, it was nice having First Lady on today.
You need to stop. Good morning, everybody. Everybody saying good morning to me, babe. So, but anyway, I'm woke-ish. I don't want to claim to be completely woke because, like I said, every day I'm finding out something new about the way that they do things and the way that they hide things from us and the way that they manipulate us, and the way, that they keep whiteness going, and the way that they keep white supremacy going. But like you said, and I want to use this term because, as a student of psychology, as a therapist, as a counselor, and as one who has kind of been in that field in education for a long time, people like Ted Cruz and states like Texas are legit case studies for how white supremacy works.
Oh, that's the title of this program.
See,
The Texas is a case study
studies,
in white supremacy. Exactly.
Yeah, I had this conversation with one of my girls, and and I love her, I respect her. She categorizes herself or identifies herself as an Afro Latina, and she's completely embraced in both communities. But we had this conversation after the election, and I was asking her, I was like, why so many Hispanics? And I know Hispanic is supposed to be an Americanized term, that's been put on Latinas and Latinos, and and a lot of that community, if you will, Puerto Ricans and so on and so forth. But so I was like, why so many Hispanics identify as white? And then it really hit me. It really hit me when one of my coworkers, one of my girlfriends, a therapist just like me, and we have been friends, and we have been working together and doing case studies together, and switching clients and families, for like 3 years. And then again, once, talking about the election, and I was sharing with her some of the work that we was doing in the community, or, some of the ladies was doing in the community, and so on and so forth, to empower and inform. And she told me about this incident. She shared with me about this incident going to her daughter's school. And of course, COVID was here. But going to her daughter's school and being asked to identify her racially, if you will, ethnically. And she said that, of course, after choosing Hispanic, she said that they put Black in Hispanic. And she said she had to argue with them. I'm white. I'm not Black. I'm white. I'm not Black. And so, I was kind of taken aback a little bit, because, we have been friends for 3 years, and she was like almost indignant about claiming whiteness.
But see, what white supremacy has done such a number on Black people and other non-white folks, that it has fueled this anti-Blackness across the diaspora of Black people, across the diaspora of Latinx people and Asian folks, that no matter, at all costs, people want to say, I am not Black.
Right.
You have Black people. And I'm like, Negro, look in the mirror.
Right.
Right. we have, and this is not to cast aspersions or throw any folk under the bus. It's just real. We got Africans who come over here from Nigeria and other nations on the continent of Africa, who will be indignant if you call them Black. I'm not Black. I'm not Black.
Well,
like,
you're right. You're right, babe. And I've had that experience too. When I was in school with my master's degree, I was approached by some Black Jamaicans, and some, Haitians, and
Trinidadians,
and some authentic African, who were Black, who told me, because I was like the only one in my class at that particular time, and it was diverse cultures class. Yeah, it was diverse cultures class. And and I was the only one in there who happened to have been in that class at the time, who identified as African American, or whatever. And so I just made the assumption that the other Black people that was in the room, at least by skin color, right? Okay, because that's the conversation that we need to have. At least by skin color, I made the assumption, my naivete, made me make the assumption that, you know, the other people that were darker skin or darker hue or had some hue, you know, or whatever in melanin in their skin color, I assumed that they were black too, or identified as black. But that I had a real wake up call, and I was left stunned because I couldn't couldn't process that. Yes.
Let me turn a corner here. I'm gonna turn a corner here, and you all hold on, because this is gonna be a sharp corner. Okay. That's the reason why I am reassessing my political interpretation of some policies that are being promulgated. Because here's the thing. When black folk, the Congressional Black Caucus and black politicians all over the nation are gung-ho about supporting immigration policies that favor brown folk that are coming over from Latinx countries and all of that, they're favoring pushing DACA and citizenship of folk. And here's the reality. Many of those cultures are anti-black. You have many folks who are coming over here who have brown skin, but they get here, you know, and we're thinking, you know, hey, this is great. Black and brown people coming, Somalian refugees and other people from the continent of Africa coming over, and other people from Latinx nations getting over here. And they come over here, and many of them are white supremacy has given them an anti-black bent. And we're cheering on their arrival in this nation when in actuality, it only increases our fight against anti-blackness. And I'm beginning to understand more and more why so many African Americans are now speaking vociferously in opposition of some of these immigration policies and are pushing black elected officials. Hey, you know what? Why don't y'all push policies that support black people instead of spending so much time talking about DACA and other immigration policies that support brown people that are coming over here? Let's take this call. Then we got to transition off the air and continue with our listening audience, with our streaming audience. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Caller, you're on the air. Going once. Going twice.
I don't know, Bishop. I think that was a loaded comment for somebody to respond to. But well, yeah, but I definitely get your point. Well, another point though that I want to make quickly before we switch to the after show is that I think, you know, this is another way, and I think you alluded to this earlier in your show, but this is another way that they're using other cultures to push their program. And what I mean by that is politically, the census, we know how important the census is, right? In order to, you know, decide how many representatives in the state, you know, and drawing lines of redistricting and you know, and all of that kind of stuff, thought, you know, what.
Hold that thought. 2 minutes. We got to get off the air. Caller, you're on the air. You got 30 seconds if you're still there. All right. Caller didn't want to say anything. All right. Okay, so
I just wanted to say this. Left. Please let me finish this thought. I just wanted to say that that's the way that the census has been used against us, is if they can siphon off a percentage of Hispanic people to claim to be white, they can also misrepresent the number of white people that are really in the state. I don't think that the census is correct. You know, I personally don't think that the census is correct with the number of black and brown people that live in the country.
All right, we got to transition off the air to the callers that are calling in. You're going to have to call back because you wasn't saying nothing when I answered the phone. So we'll get you on the other side of the break. Those who are listening on WTCC, if you're looking for a place to worship, check us out at the Spring of Hope Church of God in Christ, 35 Alden Street, Springfield, Massachusetts. We're streaming live every Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. And check us out this Wednesday. We'll be preaching for the Reverend Jesse Burgess in his annual conference. Check us out. Listen, until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. To our streaming audience, stay right there. Coming back with the First Lady. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. But I'm going to bump this song by my son for a minute.
Yeah. This one is for all the brothers that passed, but more particularly one because it affected me drastically. I remember my sister gave me the call and I was in awe. Matter of fact,
you need to check him out, T. Swan.
See somebody post RIP with his name, and I said I doubt it's the same friend I had since the 7th grade. She said I'ma call his sister and double check and call me back. Said he hanged himself in his room and had been there for days. Initially it didn't hit me, then it clicked, and I remembered that I hadn't seen or heard from the homie all week. Wish he had told me what had him feeling lonely and weak. I guess everybody got demons.
You're supposed to be bumping to it, babe.
I am bumping to it, but you know, that's one of the songs that, you know, one of the most trying times in our son's life, so it makes me a little sad.
The first person I ever burned any trees with. The worst feeling is knowing that you would leave us in all this grievance without a reason. One of the first people to ever believe.
Shout out to all those families that ever been impacted by suicide. Our son's best friend committed suicide.
There was plenty times when I thought that it would drive me crazy. But looking back on it now, I see all the drive that it gave me.
Good morning, Mr. Davis. That's my maiden name. Are we related?
Daily.
That's my maiden name, Davis.
Glad that it made me. Yeah, was born the son of a pastor. He was who I was named after. Matter of fact, I even got some of his characteristics. Both of us got messages for the people. I just do mine with rhythm on beat. He do his on the pulpit with scriptures.
Oh, my friend Michael's out here, babe. Michael Moore.
Like there was pressure on me. It started off with little stuff like with my folks.
Whitney, who you calling? Oh.
Say a testimony. Getting older, had to watch how I
Chef Chris Smith. You can cook, Chef Chris.
Chatting like, is it that the past is
3-4 church, we are all still learning.
Exactly like my daddy, don't discredit my family for how I am. I'm not a little kid no more, I'm now a man.
Babe, our cousin Lisa is on here. She made a comment, and I wanna kind of give my take on her comment when we start again.
Okay, you talking all over the song.
Yeah. I thought you were playing it in the background. I'm shouting out everybody.
Learn more about why I am who I am on the daily. I know it may sound crazy, but I'm glad that it made me.
Yeah, that's right, Miss Prissy. That's right.
It made me.
All right. First Lady's still talking all over our son's song and stuff. I'm going to tell him about it. All right. So those of you who are calling in, phone line is open again. Let me get it up there. 413
Can I read a comment?
1867. Go ahead.
Let me see. I lost it. Okay, Lisa said, our cousin Lisa, she said, we can't control how people identify. If a light-skinned Hispanic chooses to identify as white, that's on them, not us. And I just want to say this, and I want to say this because one of my dear friends, one of my closest friends, and I know that's what everybody say, you know, somebody that I love and respect, and you know, and she's running for city council here. We've had that in-depth conversation. I really do think that's I'm gonna push back on that statement just a little bit, and I probably would have said it.
Folk who try to act like they're white.
Right. Well, you know, I think it's a little bit deeper than that, based on the conversation that I had with my friend. And I'm just not gonna say her name because I'm not sure if she wants to be identified. But nevertheless, I think that people are not informed and not educated on really the power that exists in identifying. You know, in identifying yourself. You know, so it's just like, you know, on one side of my family is Creole. And so a lot of my family and it became a ritual. It became a lifestyle passed down through the generations that you could not marry or you could not intermingle, but you certainly could not marry anyone darker than a paper sack. You know, so they used to give our family members paper sack tests, you know, whatever, and they would hold it up against them. And if you were darker than that paper sack, and if a comb couldn't go straight through your hair or whatever the case may be, then you could not marry that person. And my grandfather was one of the first people who could pass for white in his family. Who married a dark skin. His second wife was dark skin and nappy hair, and that's who my grandmother was. And my mother was also dark skin, and so, you know, but anyway, that's when kind of the dark skin, the more darker skin or the more melanin started to kind of infiltrate that side of the family. But I mean, the reason why light skin was pushed or was because people wanted to be able to pass. You know, they wanted to be able to pass, or, you know, they thought that socially they would be treated better the lighter were.
Exactly.
You know?
The reality is,
right.
They thought there were benefits, today as well, they feel like there are benefits to being white. Right. And there are detriments to being non-white. And Absolutely. So that is fueled by white supremacy. The fact that I want to identify as white, even though I'm not, is based on the fact that we live in a white supremacist system that disenfranchises you if you are not white, and that prioritizes or gives you privilege if you are.
So that's what's behind your identification. Unfortunately, you know, we don't want it to be, you know, certainly from an emotional or maybe a mental aspect, but identification is very political in this world. So the way that you identify does create a report or a manipulated census, or, you know, it also speaks to power. So if you got more Black people, you know, if you got a number of Black people, that will push people to make political decisions, you know, or whatever, that they probably would not make if they thought that the number was lower, or whatever the case may be. And it's easier to manipulate a group of people or a culture, you know, if you're lying to them. In this country, white supremacy is built on lies. That's the whole thing. White supremacy is built on lies. So everything is about lying. Everything is about deceit. Everything is about manipulation. Everything, you know, in this system. Yeah, so, you know, I want to push back on that just a little bit. And I think that once people know that, once people understand that, you know, or whatever, then maybe the way they identify would become more meaningful and empowering. Because I know me as a Black woman, I love identifying as a Black woman, as an African descent, or whatever, as a descendant of Africa. I love it. It's power in it. So I think identification is definitely way more important than what we think.
Yeah. But anti-Blackness is a problem everywhere. And the reality is the pervasiveness of white supremacy and anti-Blackness is why you can have a state like Texas be 60% non-white and still keep white supremacists in power. That's why a Ted Cruz can continue to be reelected and can choose to say, all of those Black and brown people who and don't get it twisted, they were restoring power to affluent white communities on a priority basis, while they were allowing poor communities where predominantly Black folks lived in Houston and Dallas and other places to go without power for a prolonged period of time, which is why a Christian Pavone dies of hyperthermia in his bedroom, because they made sure that the communities that had their constituents in it got power back first. That's the reality. And it is this pervasiveness of white supremacy that allows these people to stay in power and causes folk to vote against their own best interest.
Best interest, right. Absolutely. Well, somebody said it and they put it in the best way possible. And I wish I could remember the quote verbatim. But, LBJ, he said it, why white men will vote against their own best interest.
Oh, yeah, because if you can convince them that they are higher and superior to Black folk, regardless of the educational, economic attainment of Black people, if you can convince them, listen, you are still better than Black people, they'll continue to pour money into your political party because they buy into the bigotry and not the policies. That's why you got these people in office right now, because their bigotry resonates with those residents. So when you say, keep these folk out of our country, let's build a wall, all this kind of racist rhetoric, that's what resonates. They don't care that you're promulgating policies that benefit rich communities and all of the things that you stand for on a policy basis are detrimental to their community. You're pushing the notion that you're better than these people that I'm talking bad about. That's why you had folks who lived in trailer parks holding up Trump flags and signs and stuff, while Trump is giving away the store to rich folk and didn't give a hamburger about them. They're like, go Trump, because his bigotry is what resonated with them.
So how do you explain? Well, let me read these two comments first. So Michael Blue, I hope I'm saying her name right. Michael Blue said, you have to flip everything they say to get to the truth, which is so true, I believe. You have to flip everything that they say to get to the truth, or at least you got to tear down everything that they say, to get to the truth. But Monica Galloway, I'm assuming that she's in Texas, maybe in Dallas, my home city. But she said that Highland Park and University Park, SMU, the SMU area, babe, the average house price is $10 million, she said. And they never lost power. They never lost power and water, I'm assuming. They never lost power and water.
You know what? They probably were on a separate power grid.
I'm sure they was.
I'm sure they were. They probably were,
because you got to remember, people lost water too.
Yep, they probably had a separate water supply, and the whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the constituents of people like Ted Cruz.
Yeah, Monica said she's in Dallas. She said, I'm in Dallas. So, yeah. So, that is not coincidence, people. That is not coincidence, So They don't give you the same services. You know, I also thinking about what you said earlier about that case study, the black family that bought the $1 million home, poured into it, you know, another $400,000, you know, so that they could flip it and sell it for more, you know, or whatever the case may be. And of course, how they downgraded the assessment when you know they were on the picture, you know, to sell it. And then, you know, when she asked her white friend to come and, you know, and pretend to be the owner of the home, how they upgraded it, what, $800,000, almost another $1 million, you know, or whatever the case may be. I was thinking about, I was just kind of thinking about how that plays out, you know, all across the country. And I kind of lost my thought a little bit. I'm sorry, Bishop.
That's what happens when you get old. When
I
you
know.
get throwing your age out there. You start throwing your age
I
and
know.
years out there. Now you starting to act like what you said you were.
No, I'm still in recovery. I'm still in recovery.
Yeah, okay.
I'm still in recovery. But anyway, my thought will come back to me. But it was something about housing and houses and housing prices and this, that, and the other. You know, it was something about that. But anyway, I'll come back to it. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, you funny. You forget. Boy.
I did. I lost my thought. I'm not used to this yet.
Good morning,
you know.
caller. She forgot her thought, so you good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm blessed, Bishop. How are you?
I'm good. You're on the air.
Turn her up. We can't hear her.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say I'm a veteran. I'm doing okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a veteran. Top of my class in the military. I'm a clinical social worker. I was thinking I was having a heart attack on February 8th. I went to the Detroit VA. Crazy looking young female Caucasian doctor just walked up to me while I'm laying in my bed, snatches my mask off, and exposed me to the virus. So I kind of freaked out and asked her what was her problem, and I exposed her. I pulled her mask down as well and told her don't treat people like inanimate objects, to ask before you touch people, and how does she like being exposed? Upon my discharge, here come the federal VA police.
What?
I was arrested. They told me I was smoking weed in the room. Now I'm room number 1. Of course, I'm not smoking marijuana in the emergency room, but that's what they do. They arrested me, bruised me up, threw me in a concrete room. I couldn't breathe. Thankfully, I was able to hit the record button on my phone. I've been traumatized for a week. I'm very outspoken. I'm very strong. I'm woke. So until we decide to come together, because what they're doing now, no attorney will take my case. They shut you down. They ignore you. No news station will air. They're not concerned about what happens to you if you're black. I lost my furnace 8 days without a furnace for 8 days and had to tell the VA trust fund if I was white, I would have had a furnace day 1. So when you're black, they just don't care. But until we come together is my point. Because if I post something stupid on Facebook, I get 1 million likes. But if I post something serious, let's have a Zoom conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go in together and get a friend. You get Chris. So until we get ready to help each other and be there for one another and build our community, I don't think we're going to have any change. And that's just what I wanted to say. All
right. Thank you, sister, for your call. Appreciate you.
Thank you for your service.
With us. I mean, that's crazy. And you know, and I believe it completely because they probably called the police and lied on her. And because they were white and she was black, they believed it. I mean, I literally, and you know this, years ago, when the Springfield Police Department sent me a racist facsimile to my church, threatening me, calling me the N-word, they tried to say I sent it to myself, even though that day I wasn't even at my job. And then the district attorney threatened he was going to file charges against me for filing a false police report unless I publicly apologized to the police. And I told him that Satan would be ice skating before I would apologize for something I didn't do, and that he can go ahead and indict me. I'd beat him in court, and then I'd sue him and the entire city. And of course, nothing ever came of that. But they will definitely try to frame you, try to make stuff up on you, all for the purpose of keeping you silent. That's an old tactic by this white supremacist system. They tried it with MLK when they were bugging his room and all of that under the COINTELPRO. They said, hey, we're going to tell your wife about alleged affairs and all that stuff. They wanted to use anything they could to keep him quiet, to keep black folk from speaking out against bigotry and white supremacy.
Yeah, I'm kind of, well, I'm not surprised, unfortunately, by the caller's story. Unfortunately, that's just the kind of the way it is. I'm kind of at a loss too as to what we can do about it as a greater community, because it's just so much going on. I feel like sometimes we don't know where to start. And, it's like I write a to-do list, right? I write a to-do list, and I write my to-do list based on priorities. Excuse me. I write a to-do list based on priorities, based on deadlines, what's the, most important. And then, as I complete one, I check it off. Then I go to the next. As I complete another, I check it off. Or whatever. I mean, we kind of live in a day and time we don't know what's the most important. I got an email yesterday from Senator Ed Markey, and Senator Ed Markey sent out this email, to his network, people who voted for him or who support him. And he asked this question. He said, can you fill out this survey and basically give me your number one priority, your number two priority, your number three priority, to help me kind of gauge what to advocate for, what my constituents want, what we need. And it was about a list of 10, 11 things. And babe, when I went through that list, as it pertains to, I shrunk it down to family priorities, certainly the Black community priorities, kind of where we stand socio-economically, education, healthcare, or whatever as a priority. And I could not choose. All of them was number one priorities. Let me just put it that way. All of them were priorities. All of them were number one to me. But I had to choose one, like racial justice, police reform, healthcare, education, climate control. All of this. All of them are priorities for us. We're dying from all of them. We're being miseducated. We're not being taken care of in the healthcare systems. We're being mistreated, or whatever. We're down at a disproportionate rate, with the virus, or whatever just everything, the incarceration rates, or whatever are astronomical. It's growing, although we've been working on that for a long time. I mean, like, so how do you start? How do we take care of, one issue when all of them are a priority? What do we do? That is the $1 million question. What do we do?
Yeah, we gotta push for all of the issues that are important to our community. I mean, you're right. It's kind of like, them saying, you got a choice. You can be cured from your lung cancer or your pancreatic cancer, when they're both going to kill you. The reality is I want to be cured from all of it. All of the social ills, all of the disparate ways that Black folk are treated in all of the various facets of American life. We want all of it dealt with. We want the extrajudicial murder of our people dealt with. We want the injustice in the criminal justice system dealt with. We want redlining done away with. We want the economic disparities that exist, the wealth gap. We want all of it, all of it.
One of the things that was brought up in the vaccine information forum yesterday was when Dr. LaRock told us that just in this past year, in dealing with the virus, that first of all, the number one group, you know, like their number one cause of death, I believe she said was 35 to 45. The age range was like
35 and over.
Okay, so that was their number one cause of death in this past year because of the coronavirus, right? But she also said something that, you know, really stuck to my bones and really had me kind of rolling over in my sleep last night. She said that the white people, their life expectancy has decreased by 1 year. But what that means for Black people is that our life expectancy has decreased by 3 years. No, she said 3. It's 3, you know. And so it's like, don't we see?
All I know is that when white America has a cold, Black America has pneumonia.
Right. And it's COVID pneumonia. And it's COVID pneumonia. So you're absolutely right. So everything is viewed in that way. So if it's impacting white people, you know, or whatever, then it's gonna 3 times impact Black people. It's gonna, you know, more than likely impact us in a way that is not only dangerous, but detrimental to the eradication of our race and our culture, you know, or whatever. You know, of course we believe, you know, and it's not a conspiracy. You know, of course we believe that it's an attempt to always continue to oppress us and kill us. That's the number one reason why so many Black people are proceeding with caution concerning this vaccine. You know.
Stats, Kathy Swanson put up there, Black life expectancy 72 years, white life expectancy 78 years, and now that gap has widened. And remember now that Black life expectancy is overall, when you drill down further, the Black life expectancy for men is only 68 years. There was some years ago they were trying to push the retirement age from 65 to 70, and we fought against that because we were like, wait a minute, the life expectancy of Black men is only 68 years to begin with. So you're telling us to retire 3 years before we're scheduled to die, which means we never get to enjoy retirement to begin with. And now you want to push it past our life expectancy, which means we're supposed to work all the way until we're dead.
Well, that's the slave mentality.
Yeah, well,
that's the enslavement mentality. That's the enslavement mentality, right?
There was the old slave narrative was that we worked until can't see in the morning, until can't see at night. That was the reality, and for their entire lives. And apparently the American system is built just like that, just to continue to work so that you can fuel this capitalistic system that allows the oil barons and the fossil fuel giants in Texas to continue to make money hand over foot. And when the power grid goes, the poor people that they exploit freeze to death.
Right. How you doing, Elder Naylor? Elder Naylor's on the line, babe. But I would like to switch gears just for a second. I don't know if
I
everybody.
don't know. I don't know. You ain't driving.
I think it's important,
Well,
though. I
that's
think
the
it's
problem.
important.
Always
I
here.
think
Let
it's
me tell
important
y'all.
to hit
Let
on
me
some
tell y'all
things.
what the problem is.
I
See,
think it's
see,
important to hit on some.
like we go somewhere, whenever we go somewhere, she always feels like she has to
Here we
drive
go.
the car. So
Tell them
like
why,
I
babe.
get in the driver's seat and she'll walk over to the driver's seat. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, get over there.
Tell them why,
I want
babe.
to
Tell them why.
drive. Now she's on here. She want to switch gears. I can't even drive on my own show. She want to drive. Switch
No,
gears.
babe, you can drive on your own show. It's your show. Let them know it's your show. But tell them why. Tell them why I have to drive.
No, because you wanted to do that even before that accident.
No, I'm the better driver. That's true.
No,
I
you're
am the
not.
better driver.
Is a lie.
I am the better driver, but no.
No, she's
Ever
not.
since I was in that car accident, I can't. Well, I get motion sickness when I'm not driving. Okay, I don't know if anybody else have that experience, but I'm very comfortable when I'm driving myself because after being in a car accident, so I was traumatized in a car accident. But I have a hard time sitting in the passenger seat. I believe it's because I was sitting in the passenger seat when I was in the car accident with my sister and my kids. But anyway, that's the reason why I have to drive when we're together. But I want to
Anyway,
switch gears. I want to switch gears, and I think this would be good for you, especially with you being a bishop, and especially with our denomination being highlighted in this. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the documentary that was aired by Skip Gates, the Black Church. I wanted us to talk a little bit about that, and because I don't think it would be appropriate to try to hit on it, next week or anytime after, because it was aired this past week.
I haven't
So
finished watching it yet.
yeah, well,
I haven't watched the second part at
I,
all. A lot of my peers and friends and stuff are in it. My presiding bishop, Bishop Blake, is in it. My friend, Reverend Eugene Rivers, is in it. The Reverend Al Sharpton is in it. Pastor Otis Moss is in it. Many of you saw him when he was on my barbecue.
yeah.
Yolanda Pierce, some of y'all saw her when she came to Springfield to my lecture series. She's in it. And I know I'm missing some who are also in it. So I'm really excited about watching the rest of it just to see what they had to say. But from what I saw for part of the first episode, it seemed like some very pertinent information. My only pushback, at least from what I saw in the first episode, is they really dealt with the Black church and Christianity from the perspective of, or from the starting point of, Black folk being exposed to whitenized, Western culturized, European Christianity, or what I call slaveholder religion, once they got here to America. And
Once we got here.
I wish they would have went further back to the roots of Christianity in Africa, because part of the problem with my Muslim brothers and sisters, my 5%er brothers and sisters, and others who continue to push the narrative that Christianity is a white man's religion, they do that from a standpoint of ignorance, thinking that Black folks didn't get exposed to Christianity until our ancestors were enslaved in America. And no, Christianity, the oldest Christian church in the world, is the Ethiopian Coptic Church. Christianity had its roots in Africa. Christ was an African. And so it is an African religion at its genesis. And I think that really needs to be understood.
Yeah, so thank you, for giving the people my thought, because I did watch it, and I said that to you because I know that you're seminary trained. I'm not, And so I did, my criticism of the documentary is that very thing, is that, and I kind of resent, although, I'm a lover of history. I'm certainly very, 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 I'm very much adore our contributions as Black people, as African people, if you will, as descendants of Africa, in the world, indigenous people. I love learning of us. But what I kind of resent is that, especially here in America, we got this thing like we always start Black history, or because the title of the documentary was The Black Church, our story, our song, or whatever case may be. And so I was excited about it because I thought that they were gonna go back to the church's origin. So I thought it was gonna be before 1619. And that's like the thing that I resent also about Black history, is that we always start at 1619, like Black people didn't exist, or Black people didn't start until 1619. No.
Our history starts with slavery, and it
like
doesn't.
like we were civilized, like they did not kidnap and enslave ignorant people, or whatever. They didn't.
Well, and the other thing about that, babe, is people say, well, that's the start of Black history here in America. No, it's not, because Black people were here in America before white Europeans got here.
Well,
and that's what we have to understand.
Well, see, but that's never brought out either. Just like in the documentary, and I made the assumption that we was gonna go back. We was gonna go back to Ethiopia. We was gonna go back to Africa, and we was gonna start there. At least with the title church. It's called the Black Church. So the Black Church came from something, and it didn't come from slave ships. Whatever. It didn't come from slaves. Now, I believe this because I believe in epigenetics, right? So I believe, that there.
Well, you want to tell people out there what that is in case they don't know?
Well,
for like throwing around big words all of a sudden.
No. I mean, it's not a big word, but we will understand this. So, okay, so we identify with our ancestors, right? And we identify with what our ancestors have been through. And when we think about the trauma of being kidnapped or being raped, or when we think about the trauma of being whipped, when we think about the trauma of being taken from your mother and father, when we think about the trauma of being spit on and lashed and your foot cut off, and and all of those things, we may not have ever physically experienced those traumas, and we may not have ever known if our great grandmother experienced it or grandfather experienced it, but our spirit, our soul, even it is in our psyche. All of that trauma is passed down through generations, and that's what epigenetics basically means. So although we may not have experienced it, we have the fight in us to defeat oppression, defeat slavery, defeat all of those mental, psychological, spiritual chains that tried to keep us bound or tried to kill us. So so epigenetics is basically, we feel it. We may not be able to put a name on what we're feeling, all the time, but it's been passed down through generations. So I'm a big believer in epigenetics. And so I just want to make this point. I believe with the church origin really being in Africa, as you say, the Coptic church, and so on and so forth, that a lot of those slaves were A lot of those people who were stolen and became enslaved. I got to make sure that I use the right terminology here. You know, became enslaved. That epigenetics, just like anything, was passed down through the generations too, and that's the reason why we were able to take Christianity back and actualize it in the way that we see it today. That's the reason why the Black church exists, and that's the reason why the Black church in America is the largest, most stable institution. I don't care if it's a storefront church, I don't care if it's a mega church. It is the most consistent institution on the planet.
It should be the most independent because
it should be.
It receives its resources from its own people, and it doesn't have someone standing over it threatening that if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to take something from you.
So Whitney gave me the name. That's what I was trying to remember. Thank you, Whitney. Whitney is our daughter. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. Post-traumatic slave syndrome is one of those, traumatic, symptoms that we have passed down, certainly through the generations. And so, although we were not quote unquote slaves, although I think we are, it's just more sophisticated and, than it was, when it was more savagery included in it. But nevertheless, and then Clifford said, yes, First Lady, is biblical seeds inherited from ancestors. So we do. We carry those seeds that we have inherited from our ancestors, not just the good ones, not just the powerful ones, but we carry their trauma too, So yeah. So yeah, that's epigenetics. So thank you everybody for having that conversation with me. So that is my critique. But I did want to say this because, two people that I really love, Karen Hunter and Dr. Carr, they talked about the documentary too. And from a perspective that I had not thought of, so some of the things they said, I was like, I hadn't considered that. But I did feel somewhat validated about the Black church, and I'm gonna tell you why. I mean, through this documentary, and I'm gonna tell you why I felt that way. And thank you for that term too, vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma is exactly what I think. That's a good way to describe epigenetics, or whatever, and how it's passed down through the generations, and by our ancestors that we never met and don't even know their names. In some cases, don't even know their names. So thank you for that, Mika Blue. But I did feel validated by this documentary because so many times, throughout my life, and again, I state that I'm 53 years old. The Church of God in Christ happens to be the only church that I know intimately. And the reason why I say that is because when I was born, and I've shared this before, when I was born,
Keep talking, babe. Keep talking.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Right back.
Okay.
Go ahead.
When I was born, my mother wasn't in the church at the time, and I was born to a single parent, and so my paternal grandparents actually came along into my mother's life and told her that they would help her with me. And so I was in church before I went home, according to my grandmother, because my mother was still in the hospital after she gave birth to me, and I was okay to go home. And so, I guess it was different way back then. So my grandmother had me, and the first place she took me was to church. And I loved her telling me this story. She's gone on to be with the Lord now, but nevertheless, she took me to the church, and she took me to the church mothers. And at that time, the church mothers sat on the front row to pray for me. And so they basically passed me down the front row for every mother to lay hands on me, to bless me with oil, and and so on and so forth. So that's the only church that I know. Church of God in Christ, Wheatley Church of God in Christ, located in the south part of Dallas, Texas. And so when I moved up here, I looked for a Church of God in Christ, and I became a member of the first one I went to, which was Bethesda Church of God in Christ, Lonnie G. Kelly. And Pastor Kelly was the man that walked me down the aisle to marry my husband. And now 30 years later, here we are. And I'm still in the church, and now my husband is a bishop in that church. So that's the reason why I say I know this church intimately. But we can also speak to the bad night that the church has gotten during different stages of my life. I remember being very young, and it was a Baptist church across the street from us. And we were surrounded by the other denominations that were also Black churches, but they made fun of us. They called us holy rollers and, and names like that because, Church of God in Christ, of course, is the largest Pentecostal church in the world, if I'm not mistaken, right? In the world. So anyway, with that, being said, I remember that hurting my feelings. I also remember, kind of growing up and or whatever case may be, and getting to a point to where Pentecostal preachers were considered less educated or even ignorant, of whatever. And then, of course, I remember this being married to you, and us, us being the kind of ministry that we are, and being the kind of couple that we are. Certainly engaged politically. We believe that is important to have political knowledge, certainly to have social economic knowledge or social knowledge, social justice knowledge is probably premier, with our thought pattern, and certainly, at the ministry, being getting some flack about that as well. I remember you going to the Million Man March, and
I got in trouble for that.
Oh, you got in trouble for that,
Oh, those Christians.
Right, I turned around and went to the Million Woman March, but I don't think we got the kind of flack, as first ladies and as Christian women that people like you did for participating with the Million Man March. And you even got some flack for just being a friend of Minister Youssef here at the mosque.
Man, listen, these Christian preachers were upset that I had the nerve to go to the Million Man March because it was called by that Farrakhan, and that I had the audacity to be working with the Nation of Islam when it came to issues around advocating for justice in the Black community. Now, I'm one who ascribes to this philosophy that we can both draw circles, and where our circles intersect in that area where we agree on stuff, we can work together. We don't have to agree on everything. Minister Youssef and I, we came to the conclusion, listen, you ain't going to convert me to Islam. I'm not going to convert you to Christianity, but we both believe in the freedom, independence, and justice for Black people. And so we can work together toward that end, and have a mutual respect for one another, to that end. And that's the same way today, that I operate with Mr. Johnny and with those of Jewish faith and of other faiths. And we can't be so myopic and have such tunnel vision that we feel like we can't work with people who differ with us in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of like, and you mentioned the Church of God in Christ. When I was before I became bishop, when I was serving as the chair of the Judicial Review Committee of the General Council of Pastors and Elders, we were planning our annual Pastors and Elders Conference, and our chairman, who's still the chairman, Michael Eady, was talking about a new track of educational classes for bishops, because they were trying to attract more bishops to come to the Pastors and Elders Conference. And he said it's going to be a track of educational courses for bishops taught by bishops. And I got why he did that, because the culture of our church was almost that if you were a bishop, you couldn't be taught anything or you couldn't hear anything from anybody who wasn't a bishop. And so I said to Pastor Edie, I said, wait a minute. So if a bishop can't golf and he takes golf lessons, does the golf professional have to be bishop? If he can't drive and he takes driving lessons, does the driving instructor have to be a bishop? When he gets his taxes done, does the accountant have to be a bishop? I said, how come in every other facet of life he can be taught or learn something from people who aren't bishops? But here in the church, we act like you can't learn anything from somebody who doesn't have the same title as you. It's ridiculous for us to think that we can't learn from or work with people that differ with us in any way, shape, or form. And I took a lot of heat from Christian preachers, many in my own denomination, who, when I ran for NAACP president years ago, back in 1996, I lost by 21 votes to the person who became the president then, Darnell Williams, mainly because Christian pastors signed up members of their church as members to vote against the Christian preacher because they were uncomfortable about my relationship with the Nation of Islam. It's crazy. At the end of the day, I put it like this, and I know folks get on me a lot for quoting Malcolm, but Malcolm said, you don't catch hell because you're a Democrat or a Republican. You don't catch hell because you're a Mason or an Elk. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist or a Methodist. You catch hell because you're black, period. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, black folk have to learn how to work with one another, regardless of our political differences, our religious differences, our educational differences. We've got to come together for the common goal of uplifting our people.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever really thought about this to this moment, but I would like to say I believe that you broke some ground here. I don't know if it how far the reach is, but your stance on that. I mean, we have really good interfaith relationships here. Everybody knows that we are Pentecostal Christians. Everybody know that.
And we don't compromise that.
But and not only do we work with other, although I don't like this word for what it kind of, the connotations that are attached to it, but I'm just going to say it, just for the sake of expediency. So, we work with other religions. We do. We have a really good interfaith. We have really good interfaith relationships with other, not just other Christians, but with other believers that may call God, by a different name. They may call him Allah. They may call him Jehovah. They may call, Yahweh. So we have really good relationships, and I think that's because of you. I think that's because of you and your work, but I also think it's because of our security in our faith, in our faith too, because people who have relationships, we have close relationships with people of a different faith. We have really close relationships with people of a different faith. And I think it has a lot to do with, again, our security, and that we see God working through relationships and not through dogma, if you will, not through dogma or trying to make everybody be like us. God is too big for that, for us to try to make people be a part or affiliated to the same denomination. God is God, or whatever the case may be. It's not a denomination. It's not a denomination that that we seek. It is God that we seek, and we probably use the denomination as a vehicle to bring us together, to fellowship in that. But it's not the Church of God in Christ that is going to increase our relationship with God.
And at the end of the day, one, I'm never ashamed of my Pentecostal roots.
Never.
You know, I'm Pentecostal holiness.
Right.
You know, I believe in my hand clapping, foot stomping. Religion. I'm coded to the bone. But then
It's
then
our
you can't.
style. It's our
But then you
style of
can't.
praise. Yeah.
Right. But then you can't just box me in there
No.
because
Right.
I'm more than Kojic as well.
Just like God is way more than
You
coaching.
know,
Just like God.
like folk think it's an anomaly that I'm Kojic and also a liberation theologian at the same time.
What you said. What
You
you
know,
said.
I can be both. You know, I can be both. You don't have to compromise one at the expense of the other. And then at the same time, I can be committed to my faith and my spiritual nativity, and at the same time embrace and work with people of differing faiths. My Bible never told me that when it comes to advocating for Black folks, here's the bottom line: if you're building a house and the carpenter is a Christian and the electrician is a Muslim, and the one who lays on the roof is a Jew, and the one who pours foundation is an atheist. At the end of the day, they're all working together to build the house, and as long as they keep their minds centered on that goal of building the house gets built regardless of their political differences. We're trying to build a house where justice resides, where peace resides, where economic fairness resides for Black people. And what your various faiths are should have nothing to do with our ability to work together in a cohesive fashion.
And that's the basics. That's like 101, class 101 in white supremacy Christianity. Keeping us divided, keeping us apart, because they understand the power of us, coming together, whatever the case may be, and working together regardless of, what our faith is. But again, I think that that's what's important about this documentary, is that it does kind of express, well, I don't know if it does, but it kind of gets to how, Africans were Muslim. It didn't really speak too much about the fact that Africans were also Christian, which was, my criticism, to that. But, but anyway, if it's divided, then you ought to take a step back and take a look at it, because more than likely that's a white supremacist, kind of religion that you might be participating in, because God is about unity and bringing us together,
And that's a good way to end the program today. We've got to come together as a people, as a community, as a nation, so that we push an agenda that pushes our people forward, and that dismantles this system of white supremacy and anti-Blackness. Listen, once again, on Wednesday night, I'm sure we'll be streaming from Power Gospel's social media platform for Pastor Jesse Burgess. We're also going to stream at least the sermon from the Spring of Hope platforms as well. So check us out there. The NAACP meeting that would be held on Tuesday has been rescheduled for Thursday of this week. Thursday at 6 p.m. is the general membership meeting of the Greater Springfield branch of the NAACP. And always check us out on Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. It's always a pleasure being with you all. And until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember God loves you, and so do we. Say bye.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Great comments today. Great feedback. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you for joining the show today. Really appreciate you. All love, peace, and
All right.
soul.
We out. Deuces.